Good morning, class.
Good morning, Mr. Wood.
Good.
Today we're going to learn what important things to include when we write an argumentative essay. So that's an essay where you want to prove a point and you make a list of claims and evidence to back up that point. There are three main parts of the essay, and we're going to go over them today. The introduction, the body paragraphs, and the conclusion. Today we're going to part about the important things in the structure of each, so we can just start writing papers about anything. We'll start with the introduction. The first thing you want to do is give your readers background on the topic you're discussing. So I thought that today, just for the example of like a fake paper we can use, we would have our topic be about frogs. So the first thing that you would do is you'd give some background information about frogs so your readers would understand. Now the next bit is the thesis. And that is the most crucial bit of the whole thesis. Can anybody tell me what a thesis statement is?
I can.
Nate.
A thesis is basically the argument of your paper.
Yes, exactly. For our paper about frogs, can you think of any thesis that we might want to prove, any point that we might want to prove for this paper?
How about frogs are amphibians?
Perfect. That works perfectly for this. Okay, so now we have our thesis statement, and the last bit of the introduction is the summary. So now that we know what we're trying to prove, the summary is where you give a preview to your reader about all the different topics you're going to discuss in the paper that lead back to the thesis. Everybody good so far? Any questions? Cool. Okay, great. So let's talk about the body paragraphs. This is where you're going to show the evidence that proves the point, in this case, that frogs are amphibious. The first thing to do in the paragraphs is you want to state your claim or your topic sentence. And the topic sentence is basically the single sentence that encapsulates what the whole paragraph is going to be about. Does anybody have an idea about a claim that we can make that would provide evidence that frogs are amphibious? Yeah, Gabe.
Could we say that we know that frogs are amphibious because sometimes we see them on land and sometimes we see them in the water?
Yeah, perfect, because that's one of the definitions of amphibians. Graham, what's some evidence that you could provide? What's the sort of thing that we could research that would lead us to knowing that frogs are both in land and in water?
We could talk about how frogs hunt for food on land and how they hide from predators in the
Nice. Yeah, no, that's perfect. Okay, so now we have the evidence. And the last bit of your body paragraph is the explanation. And the explanation is just sort of tying it all together. It's leading the evidence that you've chosen to lead back to your thesis and how this ultimately proves our main point that frogs are amphibious that we want to prove to the readers. Still all good? No more questions? Great. Excellent. Now there's one last bit of the paper, and that's the conclusion. In the conclusion, the first thing that you want to do is you want to summarize all the information that you've given your readers. So that would mean your thesis would come first, and then after that, you would just briefly go over all the claims that you've made that have led to you proving your thesis true. And after that, you've given your readers all the information, but you still have one more piece, and that's the so what. And the so what is the part of the paper that I personally find the most difficult, because the so what is where you have to prove to your readers why the paper that you just wrote matters. Why does it matter that frogs are amphibious? How does that help it? And so for that, the so what is where you get to decide why you've written the paper and to decide why your readers should be reading the paper. So it's the hardest part to write, but it's the thing that ties the whole thing together. And yeah, that's all the steps. Do we feel all good about this? Awesome. Now I made up a chant just because I know it's a lot of information to throw at you at once. So I made up a chant that can help us remember all the steps. You guys ready to hear it? Great. Okay. So it goes like this. Background thesis, summary, claim evidence explanation, as many times as you need, summarize, and so what? You guys want to sing it all together just so we commit it to memory?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, guys. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Background
thesis, background thesis,
summary, Claim evidence,
explanation
explanation as many times as you need to
summarize.
And
And so what?
that sounded great. I think us doing it with different Wi-Fi's made it a little icky, but it sounded awesome, guys. Thank you so much for attending the lesson, and I'll see you all next week.